kiddos, welcome to MoneyWise Wednesday. We're excited to bring you week 12. And today we're going to be talking about emergency savings. So we've kind of talked about it in the past a little bit, savings for our emergency fund. And Kelly is going to bring you guys the lesson today. And we're really excited to share that with you. And the reason why we're bringing this topic to you today is because for the adult session at noon, we're talking about hurricane preparedness. So if any of you kiddos have lived in this area for any length of time, you know that hurricanes are a very real potential thing. And so we wanted to talk about the emergency planning part from a financial aspect for you as well. There are other things beyond hurricanes, of course, that we could plan for an emergency. So we want to kind of introduce the idea of emergency funds to you today. But wait, stop. Before we do that, we have a winner for last week's drawing. We got to give away some money. Our $25 gift card winner is Aquila Pendleton. Thank you, Aquila, for sharing our video last week. You are our winner, and we'll be reaching out to you to get your card sent to you. And so, Kelly, you want to just start us off?
Sure. Now, I want to just remind everybody to like and share to win a gift card. It's simple as that. Like, share, win.
And you're entered to win. Exactly.
And you're entered to win.
That's right.
So as Kelly said, we are going to talk about emergency funds. We're talking to your parents later on about hurricane preparedness, and it just is perfect to go together. We're not doing this to scare you. We're doing it to prepare you. So what we want to do first is we're going to join Jen on her accidental visit to the emergency fund boot camp.
I'm doing it. New year, new me. Starting off with a yoga retreat. No, wait. Yoga retreat was Saturday. Today is...
Rise and shine, ladies.
Emergency fund boot camp.
Let's get those money muscles moving. Hup, 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 hup,
excuse me.
That's major savings to you, recruit.
Okay, Major, I think there's been a mistake. I'm not supposed to be in this class. I don't even need an emergency fund.
What did you say?
I've never been fired and I almost never get sick, so I don't think I need an emergency fund.
Treadmill, go! You might think you're marching along just fine without an emergency fund. But what happens when you lose your job? Or get into an accident that wrecks your car? Or get hit with an unexpected medical bill, huh?
I know those examples get tossed around a lot, but I really just can't see that stuff happening to me. Plus, I have insurance for that kind of stuff. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah? You think you're invincible, recruit? What if a family member gets ill and you have to look after them? Or your insurance reimbursement takes longer than expected? What if your pet needs a crazy operation in order to live? What if your hot water tank explodes? Or there's a flash flood? Or your refrigerator catches fire? With no emergency fund, you just wouldn't be able to keep up. Here.
And just how am I supposed to deal with a bunch of giant, unpredictable expenses all on my own?
Well, recruit, a healthy emergency fund will spot you for the truly unpredictable obstacles. But you can lighten the load by saving for some expenses before they turn into emergencies.
How can I save for something I don't know will happen?
You may not know the when, but you know the what. If you own a vehicle, start saving for eventual repairs. If you own a pet,
I have a cat.
Then start saving for eventual cat repairs. Or whatever cats need. The point is, the more you budget for outside of your emergency fund, the better you'll be able to manage whatever comes at you. Now drop down and give me 1,000.
1,000?
You heard me, $1,000, that is. Makes for a good starting goal for your emergency fund. Over time, you should increase that to 6 months worth of expenses. It takes time and dedication to get there, but once you make it, what in the...
Just because something's unexpected doesn't mean you can't be prepared for it.
I'm proud of you, recruit. So proud. I don't know, but you've been told your spending in savings must be controlled.
You've given me some good advice. A slice of pizza would be nice.
Sound off.
Pizza.
Sound off.
Pizza. No more workouts, only pizza.
Hey.
I totally feel her. I'm always thinking about food when I'm working out.
I think that's why we all work out, honestly, deep down inside, so we can have that slice of pizza. We can't even.
Oh,
Man, that was pretty cool stuff. Major savings. That was pretty cool stuff. Kelly, what's going on?
very much. I mean, it's the little things that you don't think about. So there's so many things that can go wrong that if you're not prepared for them, it can set you back. So we're going to jump right into our presentation, and we're going to talk about those little things as we go along. And I know some of the things that he talked about were big items, and you guys are like, I'm 15 years old, I don't need to worry about my hot water heater. You don't, but there's other things that you do need to worry about. So just be prepared, and you never know, years down the road you might have that emergency fund saved up, and you do have a hot water heater that breaks. So
I think too, you know, as a young person, it helps you kind of have a little bit of empathy for your parents too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have parents that are going through these things, or you're living in the same house where you're seeing some of these little emergencies happen. You realize that there's more to life than just what's going on in your little world. You know?
Absolutely.
Hopefully you'll have a little bit of compassion for your parents.
So first, let's talk about what an emergency fund is. So the technical term, that an account that is used to set aside funds to be used in emergency, such as the loss of a job, an illness, or a major expense. But in reality, it's an easily accessible stash of money used only in case of emergency. So let's talk about the steps in building an emergency fund. So we've talked about emergency funds before, but not in great detail. So step one is simply to start one, get it started. And who needs one? Everybody needs an emergency fund. So why? Because life is unpredictable and only takes one little thing to derail your financial routine. An emergency fund minimizes the stress and damages caused by the surprise expense. And step two is to keep it close. So what does that mean? That means keep it handy. Your emergency fund needs to be accessible. So when it's needed, you can get to it fast. And you keep it separated. So at Envision, we have these great extra savings accounts. So we have your savings, your checking, and then we have special savings where it's not in with all your other money. Because what happens when you have it in with all your money and you see something that you really want, you might go, oh, I've got that money sitting in there. Keep it separate. Keep it in an interest-bearing savings account. It's a perfect place for your emergency fund. So it's handy, but you really have to think about it before you take money out. And then step three, get to know your unknowns. So what does that mean? So there's unknown unknowns and there's known unknowns. So let's talk about both of those. So Herschel, can you explain what unknown unknowns are?
So unknown unknowns are motivation for creating an emergency fund. You don't know when that'll happen, if that'll happen. You just have to know that it's potential that it could happen, right? Examples: sudden unemployment, health emergencies, accidents, bereavement travel. All these things are unknown unknowns. But hey, listen, bad things happen to good people all the time, right? Those are unknown unknowns. We just can't see that it could happen. We just have to know that it's potential that it could, and we have to plan for those things. Unknown unknown.
Absolutely. Thank you, Herschel. And so then there's known unknowns, and known unknowns are expenses that are somewhat predictable. Like, you know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. And some examples of that are major car repairs. You know, I know when my son was younger, he had a car. If there was an emergency with a motor or something like that, we took care of it. But if it was something else, that was his responsibility, and he had to budget for that. Pet care. We talked about this a couple weeks ago with owning pets. There's always going to be expenses related to pet care that you're not planning for, that are out of the ordinary. But I believe Kelly said that in a pet's lifetime, there'll be an animal, you may have a bill between $2,000 and $4,000.
Yeah.
That's one of those known unknowns. When you have a house, there's home repairs. There's replacing major appliances. And without fail, if one appliance is going to go, you're probably going to have two or three.
Welcome to home ownership.
Yeah.
That's right. It does seem to happen that way, doesn't it?
It does, yes. So let's define an emergency in step 4. Emergencies come in many different forms. So any situation that threatens your cash flow is appropriate for your emergency fund to step in and handle. So an example of that is being out of work for an extended period of time, needing to take care of a loved one. A big one is waiting for an insurance reimbursement. So you're lined up, you've got insurance, you've got, you've paid for something, but it may take longer than expected to get that money back. So step 5 is calculating your goal of your emergency fund. So what you need to do is plan for, this is big numbers. for everybody. So, take it slow, but what your goal is 6 months worth of expenses in your emergency fund. So depending on what your monthly expenses are, you guys are younger, you may have monthly expenses of $500 a month. So your emergency fund size should be around $3,000. For those of us that have a lot more expenses, maybe $4,000, our emergency fund size should be around $24,000. And then you're not going to just take that money and stick it in a savings account. You're going to have to plan for it and budget for it, like we've talked about in our budgeting. So let's plan for it. Take small steps. So if 6 months of expenses is very intimidating. So maybe set aside $500 and then double it to $1,000 and so on. But anytime you can put money into that emergency fund, put it in there, and it adds up really quick, especially if there isn't any, if you don't have a lot of known unknowns and unknown unknowns coming your way right away, you should be able to save up quite a bit of money and just be patient with yourself. Know that it's not going to happen overnight, and only go to that money if you have an actual emergency. Because I know that there are times where you're like, oh, I only have $100 in my account, but I really want this, but I have $1,000 in my emergency fund. If it's not an emergency, leave that money alone. You'll be glad you did when an emergency actually happens and you have the money available to you. So I want to thank you all for joining us. There was a lot of information we went over, and I know that we always talk about money, but that's what we do because we want you to be prepared in the case of emergency. So Kelly and Herschel, can you add a couple words for final thoughts?
I would really like to challenge you guys to watch the 12 o'clock as well for hurricane preparedness, because I think it's really good for you guys. I mean, y'all have experienced so much, like, I don't know, we mentioned this before in a past session, I think a couple weeks ago, about all the stuff going on with COVID. And I feel like all you young people are kind of being forced to grow up so much faster than your childhood is kind of like intended. So I still want you to, of course, like keep being a kid, keep being young, and embrace, the day to day and not worry about the future. But at the same time, life is hard. Like, there are a lot of things that come at us. And I imagine that for your generation, it's going to be even harder than for us. I don't know. It's just kind of how things evolve, right? It's just how things change. And I just want to challenge you guys to like embrace your like childhood, but also try to prepare as much as you can for the future, because you don't know what the unknown is going to look like. I've said it a billion times. We do not have a crystal ball on our desk, right? So we don't know what the future is going to hold. But if you have a dream in your heart, or you have a plan, or you have something that you want to accomplish, saving and putting an action plan into place is a huge propeller to helping you get there and getting there faster and accomplishing those dreams. And an emergency fund is no different. If you don't have an emergency fund, you are depleting your normal everyday to-day cash flow, like Kelly was saying. So don't let that be something that hinders you from accomplishing, whatever it is. I remember I'm looking back over my life and thinking about like, what were the times that were the most stressful for us financially. And it's where one unfortunate unknown happens, and then another one right after that, and then another one after that. Like, and you feel like you just are getting buried in debt or bad decisions or just bad luck, right? And blaming the world. Well, right now you have an opportunity to have no more excuses to blame anyone else, because you know that if you were prepared and you have a little cushion, that you would be able to survive it. Right? So that's on you, right? So now that you know this, and you know that you can actually create an emergency fund and have a cushion for the future, choosing not to is a choice. You're still saying, I'm choosing not to have the cushion or the backup plan. Okay, that's still on you X number of years down the road when you're on your own. So make the choice now to say, when I get my first job, or when I earn my money for doing chores or whatever, these are the decisions, these are choices that I'm going to do with that money, for the future. So I'm just I got real heavy there, but
You did.
just challenging you kids, because you've already kind of been forced to grow up a little bit over these last few months with COVID and distance learning and all of that. Continue on that path of maturity, right? And just learn something from this.
Yeah, definitely talk about, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, definitely talking about an unknown, you're living it right now.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's true, Kelly.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. This is probably one of the biggest unknowns that this generation has seen. I'd like to second that challenge that Kelly just presented to you kids. Watch the 12 o'clock session of preparing for the storm. Everybody in the home plays a part in making sure that the home is protected, the family is protected, and the financial well-being of the home and family is protected, right? So that means anyone from 5 to 15 to 25 to 45 years old, everyone plays a role in preparing for what we know is coming, right? Those are one of those known unknowns, right? So let's prepare for it, and let's make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to create long-term stability, comfort, and financial well-being on our part. Kids, it's been a pleasure. Like Major Savings says, it's all on you.
That's right. Sir, yes, sir. Thank you, Kelly, for leading
Thank you,
today.
guys.
Thank you, kiddos, for joining us. We'll see you guys same place, same time next week.